Hi, everyone. My name is Mantai Narayan Datta, and I'm an associate professor of political science at the University of Richmond. I want to thank you for joining me as part of our conference with the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. Actually, one of my first moments in the anti-slavery movement more than a decade ago was presenting at UNL, and I remember the warmth of the community that the team at UNL was able to create in the anti-slavery movement. And I think one of the reasons why I stay involved in the anti-slavery movement is because of the people. The issue of human trafficking is something that we are wrestling with. And I find grace and I find acceptance in the anti-slavery community in a way that I don't think I've found in many other political science networks. My home discipline is political science. I feel so many of the people that I've worked with in the anti-slavery movement have become dear friends, and so I deeply treasure and appreciate this space. Today's video presentation is about some of the research that I've been doing with my colleagues Kevin Bales and Angharad Smith about slavery and conflict. And so I've prepared a Zoom PowerPoint presentation for you. What I'll do is I will walk you through the slides and talk through some of the key ideas that me and Angharad and Kevin and I have been developing about the relationship between slavery and conflict. And the question we're asking really is, to what extent is human trafficking or contemporary slavery related to militarized interstate disputes or wars, and what can we learn about that connection? And that research brings me to today's presentation, which I will share now with you all. The title of the research paper that Kevin and Angharad and I have written is called Contemporary Slavery and Armed Conflict, Introducing the CSAC Dataset, 1989 to 2016. Angharad is currently at the Center for Policy Research at United Nations University, and we are so very proud of her and of the work that she's doing with the UN. Then, of course, there's myself. My name is Mantai Narayan Datta. I'm an associate professor of political science at the University of Richmond in Virginia. And then last not but least is my friend, mentor, and colleague, Kevin Bales, who's currently professor of contemporary slavery at the Rights Lab at the University of Nottingham. And yes, it is that Nottingham of the mythology of Robin Hood and Sherwood Forest, that Nottingham. This is a photo of Angharad, just to honor her presence and all of the work that she did in helping put together the CSAC database. We started this project, oh my gosh, maybe 4 years ago now. And without Angharad, without all of her work coding and all of her diligence and meticulousness, this project would not have been finished. And then, of course, the other person to acknowledge is Kevin Bales. And he is one of the founders, I would say, of the contemporary anti-slavery movement. And I remember presenting some of my research with Kevin at UNL more than a decade ago now. My gosh, time goes by. But in this community, once you make a friend remains a friend for years and years and years, which sustains my work in the anti-slavery movement. The issues can be difficult, even, well, to be honest, traumatizing. And as the song says, you get by with a little help from your friends, and Kevin is one of those friends, along with Angharad. And so this is a photo of me and Kevin and his son Gabriel, who also helped with some of the coding for the CSAC database. And this photo was taken about 4 or 5 years ago. I had less gray hair then. And at the time, we were in the island of Guernsey, where Kevin lives. That's part of the Channel Islands between the UK and France. And me and Kevin were talking, and Kevin had been inspired by some prior research on the intersection between militarized conflicts and other human rights abuses beyond human trafficking. Most notably, the use of rape as a weapon of war. And Kevin had been inspired by an article, and here is a screenshot of the article entitled "Explaining Rape During Civil War, Cross-National Evidence" by Derek A. Cohen at Harvard University. And Dr. Cohen is an esteemed colleague at Harvard, also very gracious. And we really took a deep dive and look at her research on rape and militarized disputes, or in this case, her focus on rape and civil war. And we began to ask the question, how could we build on her insights in thinking about the relationship between war and human trafficking, or war and contemporary slavery? And I'm mindful of definitional differences, but for the purposes of this video lecture, I'm equating the terms human trafficking, modern slavery, and contemporary slavery. So we thought about what we could do, and we looked more closely at some of Derek A. Cohen's original research. And what we found was that Professor Cohen took some data from the Uppsala Conflict Data Program, or UCDP, and she built upon their data set, which has a really meticulously coded data set on state and non-state actors and militarized interstate disputes over time. And as a first pass, Kevin and Ann-Hared and I, we thought, okay, let's go to the UCPD data and let's code instances of enslavement for a sample of time from 1989 to until then, what was the most recent data set, to 2016 for the Uppsala Conflict Data Program. We thought we'd look at basically the end of the Cold War until the modern day and try to code conflict by conflict, war by war, those instances of enslavement around the world. And this, of course, was a novel coding exercise. This had not been done before. And so, my gosh, I had so many great one-on-one sessions brainstorming with Ann-Hared and Kevin in thinking about the methodology and how one would properly code slavery and conflict over time from 1989 to 2016, building on the Uppsala data. And so eventually, the product that all of us would deliver would be called Contemporary Slavery and Armed Conflict, or CSAC. And this is a screenshot that you see from the Rights Lab at the University of Nottingham, where we've posted some of our draft results, a draft working paper, and some data as we think more about how to share and disseminate our results. A more refined version of our paper will be forthcoming in the Journal of Peace Research, about which we are very, very excited. And so in trying to ascertain ways to measure enslavement, conflict by conflict, Ann-Hared really did a lot of the heavy lifting. And this is a screenshot of some data from table 1 of our paper that will be published with the Journal of Peace Research. And these are key words that Ann-Hared and Gabe and other coders used to begin to look conflict by conflict, year by year, for instances of enslavement. And so you see keywords including slavery, modern slavery, forced labor with an asterisk so as to allow UK and non-UK spellings. The phrases slavery-like practice, domestic servitude, forced marriage, servile marriage, early marriage, child marriage, trafficking in persons, human trafficking, child labor, rape, sale or exploitation of children, use of child soldiers, and even egregious, well, what some would argue are egregious practices, including female genital mutilation, and other phrases, including logistic servitude, conflict, kidnapping, just trying to capture a wide berth of key words from which we could identify published reports from non-government organizations, international governmental organizations, and other nonprofit organizations, as well as government reports, where year by year, nation by nation, we could begin to see if there were any published accounts from which we could infer and document instances of different types of enslavement. And we were careful to code distinctions, for example, between sex trafficking, forced marriage, forced labor, the use of child soldiers, and also more broadly, the buying and selling of human beings, which we characterized with the phrase, the generic phrase, human trafficking. And so we tried to code all of these different instances of enslavement. And this is just simply a table from our paper showing a little bit of the procedure that we used. Now, granted, this is the first iteration of our data collection, data aggregation exercise for CSAC. And so if there's anybody who's watching this video, you might be inspired, or you might point out, look, you forgot a keyword, or hey, why didn't you include that other phrase? Because this is simply version 1.0 of the data set that we're looking at, we are very arms wide open, more than willing and interested in hearing your feedback on how to improve our data encoding and data methodology. In measuring slavery and conflict, once we aggregated available data from NGO reports, IGO reports, government reports, we uploaded any raw documentation of any report we could find onto a citation management database called Mendeley. And then from Mendeley, we went back to the Uppsala conflict data program database, and year by year, conflict by conflict, we coded who among these state and non-state actors was potentially culpable in slavery and conflict. And for Uppsala, the way the data were coded was there were basically two sides to any militarized interstate dispute. Side A, which was normally a nation state, and side B, which is normally a non-state actor. For example, with the case of Afghanistan, Afghanistan would be side A of a conflict, and side B would be the Taliban. And so in marshaling all of these data, we were able to count the instances that we could identify of various types of human trafficking and armed conflict. So here's one table from our forthcoming paper. And table 3 reads, summary findings of contemporary slavery and armed conflict. We found that out of the 1,113 cases from 1989 to 2016, that 970 of those instances had the use of child soldiers, or about 87% of conflicts. We found that 382 had instances of sexual exploitation or forced marriage. We found, or about 32% of conflicts. We found that 262 conflicts had instances of forced labor, and we had 185 instances of human trafficking. And by that, we meant where it seemed as if this person or individual had been bought and sold for a transactional purpose, for example, for money to fight the war. And so these findings demonstrate, whether it's child soldiers or sexual exploitation and forced marriage or forced labor, human trafficking, that enslavement is a large part of modern warfare. And we were humbled and And to be honest, a bit concerned by these results, because as a researcher, what you don't want is to find more human rights abuses and conflict. But the data would suggest that enslavement is a significant part of militarized conflicts. Some more data and looking more specifically, for instance, at the use of child soldiers in armed conflicts, we looked more carefully at whether or not side A was the lone offender, or side B was the lone offender, or both side A and side B were both offenders, conflict by conflict. And so, for instance, in this table, this reads table 4, it's a frequency distribution of child soldiers in armed conflict. We found that 473 cases where side B was the lone offender. And we also found there were equally 473 cases in which both side A and side B were the offender. And interestingly enough, only 27 cases in which side A, typically a nation state, was the lone offender, telling us that when it comes to the use of child soldiers, it's very, very unlikely for a nation state to be the sole perpetrator. It's more likely for side B to be the sole perpetrator, or for a combination of both side A and side B at the same time. Now, of course, this gives rise to other questions within the CSAC database. What explains this variation? Why is it the case that side A will not act alone when side B will? This gives rise to questions that we have not yet answered using the CSAC data. But with our data out there in our forthcoming paper, we want to grow the conversation. We want others to begin to ask other questions to problematize the issue in ways that we haven't looked at yet. Because once again, this is simply 1.0 of the data set, when we're simply trying to get out our research and grow and expand a conversation and not be the final word on the conversation. Here's another frequency distribution of, in this case, the use of sexual exploitation or forced marriage in armed conflicts. And here the data suggests that in most conflicts, 731 conflicts, or about 66% of the cases, we found no evidence of sexual exploitation or forced marriage in the 1,113 cases that we were looking at. That doesn't mean that sexual enslavement, forced marriage didn't happen. It just means that we didn't have any documented evidence to code that as an affirmative case. But among the cases that we did find affirmative instances, we found that side A was the lone offender in 110 instances, very different than the use of child soldiers. Side A is just as likely as side B to be the lone offender. And we found that when side A and side B were both the offender at the same time, it occurred in about the same number of instances. And again, this raises other questions. Why is this variation different than the use of child soldiers? And in this paper, and so far in the CSAC database, we have not looked at those questions, but we definitely invite that conversation in getting the conversation growing and developing it beyond what we've done so far. And just a few more tables. This is another table from our paper, and this is the frequency distribution of human trafficking in armed conflict. Typically, when somebody was bought and sold for transactional economic purposes. And we'll find in this case that it was more often than not side B as the lone offender. Although for the use of human trafficking in armed conflict, we found not that many cases. We found about 17% of cases in which this took place, and about 83% of the time it didn't take place. But when it did take place, you'll notice that side A was rarely the lone offender. And in terms of forced labor in armed conflict, we found that it took place in about 23% of cases, with side A, the nation state typically, being more often the perpetrator. And that's the mirror image of the use of child soldiers. So what we really appreciate about this data coding exercise is we are finding variations, we are finding patterns. And this is really beginning to open the door on what explains this variation in conflicts. Sadly, slavery does seem to be a significant part of militarized disputes, but there is significant variation whether you're looking at the use of child soldiers, whether you're looking at the use of sexual exploitation of forced marriage, whether you're looking at the presence of human trafficking or the presence of forced labor. There's a lot of variation in the data. And hopefully with CSEC, when we come out with version 2.0 of the data, we can go deeper and maybe developing more fleshed out quantitative empirical models at understanding this variation that we're just beginning to observe and just beginning to understand. Another observation we wanted to make in the CSEC data was when state or non-state actors might use enslavement as a strategy in warfare versus as a tactic. And as you know, a tactic is a way to achieve your end goal, which is the strategy. When did nations fight wars where enslavement was the outcome, or enslavement was the main objective? There are not that many instances, but in the CSEC database, we found that when enslavement was the main goal or the main strategy of a conflict, it took place on side A solely in 41 cases, in side B in 106 cases, and both side A and side B in 42 instances. Strategic enslavement historically, of course, is important in the American experience because the US Civil War was fought over the main goal of defending enslavement. That would be one historic example of strategic enslavement and conflict. But from 1989 to 2016, we found that strategic enslavement took place in about 17% of all conflicts, which gives us other questions to ask of why state and non-state actors might fight for enslavement to be their end goal versus using enslavement as a tactic to achieve other strategic objectives. So lots to think about, lots to chew on. And by all means, we are only scratching the surface of contemporary slavery and armed conflicts. What sustains me are partnerships with people like Kevin Bales and Angharad Smith, without whom this project would not have been finished. In closing, I want to thank you for listening to today's presentation. My email address is mdata@richmond.edu. And you'll also see a link, www.csac.org.uk, if you want to look more at the draft data. We'll be updating the website soon once our paper is published with the Journal of Peace Research. But in a nutshell, I can say how thankful I am for all of you who are watching this presentation. Without your input, without your participation at conferences like UNL, we are never going to find a way to end slavery. We need more discussion, more conversation. We need smarter researchers. We need better researchers. And so if any of you watching have an interest in talking more about slavery and conflict, please contact me. I am more than happy to continue the discussion. We're only getting started. So thank you very, very much, my friends. May you go in peace, and I'll talk to you later. Bye for now.